All right, welcome to Heart of the Matter, heartofthematter.com. That's heart, H-A-R-T-O, thematter.com. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We got a really cool episode coming up today, as I'd like to bring on my guest today. A lot of, you people, if you've been following me, you know this man very well from over the years, my ex-co-host on Aftershocks TV. We got author and journalist Chris Akin. Chris, I'm putting here author and journalist because I don't think you get enough credit for being, an author. I know everyone knows you as, the madman from the classic metal show. Exactly. The shot guy. But, you got like 6 books out there, man.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that. I know you're obviously hardcore fans are, but, I think that's something, obviously other than being a shocky, radio guy, you also owned and operated, your magazine back in the day in Cleveland. So I think that's one of the things, that, maybe I'll do it if you don't want to do it, but I'll push that a little more.
Talk about it. Mm-hmm. I've written 6 books. It's funny you bring this up because literally this morning I got asked to go and speak at the for the official podcast of the Phoenix Society, which is like the biggest burn organization in the world. And they want to feature me because of my book on their podcast. And then they want me to potentially go and speak at their annual conference this year in Michigan. So
really?
That book anyway has impacted a ton of people and in a lot of ways, but my books are all fun. I mean, I guess not fun, but I write some about metal. I've written a Metallica book and a Motley book and a Judas Priest book. I'm almost done with an AC/DC book.
Oh, great.
It's like 90% done. It's been there for a year. I just can't bring myself to find the time for the last 10% to get it done, but it'll get done. And cool. And then I've got my personal books, which is Call Me Chris, which is about my burn accident because I was burned up in a furnace explosion in a steel mill. And then I've got my divorce book, which is Little Victories. These are all happy topics, but I've got that one. And that's done really well. And then I've got my true debauchery book, which is called, and Other Things I Should Not Say, which is just about sex, drugs, and rock and roll when I was stationed in Korea in the military. And it's real wrong. I can't believe Amazon even carries it.
Yeah, I know. I remember, me and God, some years ago during Shockwave Skull Sessions doing that with the late great Bob Nalbandian. And I remember we had you on to talk about the book, and we both. I read the book, and Bob, I think, read most of it, and we were like, I think Bob said something like, "Man, I don't know if he should have you, even push this book right now because there's some crazy shit in there, man." But but I like that you did, open up and say, "Hey, I did some fucked up things, and this is what happened." And it's kind of cathartic too, I would think, just to kind of get that out and just kind of, in a certain way, it's like, you're just owning up to, some fucked up shit you've done in the past, and letting it out there for everyone to know, like, I'm no angel and everything, but. We can all change and everything, and we all
or not. I don't know that I've changed that much.
Well, hopefully you're not going after your friends,
wives.
Wives again.
Yeah, that wasn't some of my best stuff. That's for sure. That was definitely. There are moments in that book where I do say I'm not proud of this, but it happened. And that was definitely that whole, I'm not even gonna get into it on this show.
I know.
You can look it up on Amazon. Look up my name and Other Things I Should Not Say, which has Korean. That's the funniest part to me. It has Korean writing on it, and it's a phrase. I won't say what the phrase is here, but it has a phrase that is like automatic fighting words for Koreans. But really? I could not say it. If I wrote it in English, there's no way Amazon would have published the book. I'll just leave it at that. I'll tell you off air what it actually is, but
okay.
I can't believe they published this book with this written on it right on the front.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember you telling me about that. Yeah, I guess it's like, hey, Bad Bunny was saying stuff, I guess, at the Super Bowl that wasn't supposed to be on TV in Spanish. So the least you could do is, put a little Korean, a little
Korean love.
Vulgarity. Love, yeah. Oh, well, great, man. It's been a while, since we've done one of these, obviously. And it just, we'll start things off here. I remember when one of the last, couple of episodes we did for Aftershocks, so we were doing the Tremors, obviously, which was more about, obviously what was going on in the world of rock and metal, not doing, just interviews, obviously. And we started talking about what was happening. And one of the big, stories that's going on the last couple of years, and we got to just talk about this again, because this was, we did a couple episodes about this band. We're talking about Acid Bath, and we got a lot of people coming back because we were both like, whoa. I mean, if anyone, it hasn't been paying attention over the last few years, Acid Bath, okay, the Sludge Doom, a 90s band from Louisiana, New Orleans, scene. They all of a sudden, I remember it was the Sick New World Festival, and I remember they were doing a reunion on a couple of, there was, I think, Sonic Temple. There was about 3 or 4 festivals that they were lined up to do it. But I remember like looking at that Sick New World thing we were looking at and going, wow, they're pretty high up there on that list. I mean, on top of a lot of big names like Machine Head, I think, and stuff. And, I thought, okay, maybe it's just, this band that kind of has a bit of a cult following, obviously over the years, picked up a little steam just from people hearing about them. You getting this, hear the music on YouTube and so forth. But what's going, I mean, so we talked about that. We had a lot of fans of the band replying like, oh, you guys know what the hell you're talking about. They were huge and all this crap. It's just like, no, and no, they weren't.
They were not huge.
They were not. And we'll get into that here in a second. But yeah, okay, that was about 2 years ago. And they've done those festivals, and we saw them doing some reunion shows. I mean, they were, the headliner above bands like Grammy Award-winning High on Fire and The Obsessed and all these bigger names. And it was just kind of like, whoa, okay. Maybe it was like a Mr. Bungle kind of thing that happened during the pandemic or at that time. Remember when they came back and they had a reunion and all these shows were selling out and everything. It kind of reminded me of that. But with Mr. Bungle, you can understand because you have Mike Patton, who was, a little bit more mainstream, Faith than what was on MTV and so forth. But what's happened now, okay, then now this, when I saw this, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, all right, this is now taken to a different level here. I don't know if you've seen, but they just were announced, okay, as openers for a massive stadium, European stadium tour with Queens of the Stone Age and System of a Down.
Wow.
All right. Now, all right. Now it's like, okay, I had to dig deep a little bit more and say, how is this happening? And I was talking to my buddy the other day, I think I was telling you, we went to see Exorder, and I was like, dude, what do you think about this acid bath thing? And he's like, dude, that is just that's the weirdest thing that's been going on in the last few years. The level of rise from this band, from an obscure band, 2 albums, okay, in the 90s, okay. And I went back and even listened to these records. Like I said, I had one of them back in the day. I had their first record. But, and it's a good band, good music, but it's not something that's going to knock your socks off. And just the level from going from a band like you said, when they toured in Cleveland, I mean, maybe 20 people there.
Yeah.
Everybody I talked to said the same thing. How do you go from that to this? And we're going to get into this, man, but this is just unbelievable, right? This is insane.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, like you, I've been intrigued about this story for a few years and tried to figure it out. I mean, I even talked to Sammy Douay, about it. Or, back, he was promoting 4 or 5 years ago, he was promoting the Goat Whore record because he's also in Goat Whore. And I was interviewing him for that. And that was right when this was just starting. And I remember him saying, well, this might turn into something. And I was, I do a lot of interviews, and you do a lot of interviews. Everybody's thing is going to turn into something, you never take that serious. And it did. And I don't get it. I mean, I love Acid Bath. Don't get me wrong. I think that they were a great band. I saw them a bunch of times. But in the scope of that Sludge NOLA thing, I wouldn't even rate them in the top 5. No, I mean, I would certainly put Down above them. I mean, it's a little bit different there. Obviously, Anselmo raises the bar, but I would put like I Hate God in front of them. I would put Crowbar in front of them. All the side pieces of all those bands, you know,
Mhm.
that came out, I would put a lot of that in front. I don't understand it, but you know what? Godspeed to them. At least it's a good band. You know, it would be horrible
Mhm.
if it was, I don't know, Flybanger or something that was all of a sudden headlining these festivals. You know,
Mhm.
maybe for once, and again, I don't know, but maybe for once the metal gods got it correct and are promoting an underground band so that the 5,000 people across the United States that were fans can be like, fuck yeah, our band is doing it. That's the
Mhm.
only thing I can think of because none of it makes any sense.
Well, and just to, because like I said, we got a lot of, blowback from some fans. I mean, and listen, they're fans. I mean, those local, Louisiana, New Orleans fans are diehard for them. And I
Sure.
understand that.
Mhm.
It's a local legendary, cult following band. But they were like, what are you talking about? These guys have been big, you guys don't know shit, all this stuff. Well, listen, this is even coming. I think this was an interview right when the reunions were happening. They were being scheduled for all these shows and everything a couple years ago. Sammy DeWay, I think this was in either Loudwire or Louder Sound. He even put here, this is quote unquote here, it's fucking weird, man. He says, while we were together, nobody really gave a shit. Touring, we'd only do well in Louisiana and the South. We'd go to New York City, there'd be like 10 people there. Okay. That's straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
All right. So people could sit there and say, no, they're huge. No, they're not. They were
Right.
not huge. I remember even a couple, right when I found this information out about them, this was, like I said, probably a couple of weeks to a month ago, that they were doing this tour with System of a Down and Queens of the Stone Age. I even went, I went on their Facebook page. I think they had maybe about 14 to 18,000 followers. Okay, that's not a kind of band that's going to all of a sudden open up for two monster radio bands from the
Right.
early 2000s and late 90s, early 2000s. Listen, I like I said, and they do have, you can look at it and say, okay, Dax, right, Riggs, the lead singer, yeah,
Mhm.
he's got a very really awesome voice, very unique, very harrowing kind of clean stuff, and then he can go into real, that sludgy, sort of vocals. But I mean, even he said, you think it would have taken a rest when we put the band to sleep, but it never did. So now here's a couple of things, okay, that could maybe be a reason why this is taken off somehow. Okay. Now, one of the things was, okay, Corey Taylor, supposedly from Slipknot, supposedly cited them as an influence, and I guess they did a song called Acidic from their 2022 album, The End So Far, supposedly a tribute to Acid Bath. That could have maybe got some more, a little maybe attention from that. I don't know how much. I don't know how much he talked about it. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it
was gonna
was
say
like
this first I'm hearing of this.
right. Yeah, that could have something. Okay, a little bit to do. Now the other thing, because here's another thing too. Okay, let's look at it as for like, okay, sometimes these bands are big over in Europe, right, and then
Mhm.
it translates to here in the States a little bit bigger. But I even talked to my buddy the other day. Okay, I went to the show with, like I was telling you, he's from England, he's from Birmingham, and we were talking about that, and he was just saying, he was like, dude, I mean, maybe one other friend I knew about them.
Huh.
They were signed, I guess. Their debut was it was on Roadrunner in the UK. All right.
Okay.
And they refused to release the follow up because, again,
Didn't sell.
it didn't sell. It's and so again, I don't see how it's done. Now, here's one thing that could happen. We know we're living in a very political world, right? For how long now? A long time.
Mhm.
So supposedly, okay, Stormy Daniels. Everyone remember Stormy Daniels?
Oh yeah.
I did a little research on this. Supposedly, she has lyrics, acid bath lyrics tattooed on her.
All right. Well,
Dax Riggs came out. He said he found out that she has lyrics on her, and he's like, it blows my fucking mind. So again, I mean, I get why it can bubble up some, like there could be a renewed interest in the band, or an interest of the band from people that are really into. Listen, and the sludge and the doom and stuff like that kind of sound is obviously really big right now It's been building up the last 10 plus years or so. Not like a major thing, but bigger underground, building cult followings. There's a lot of bands that are doing well in that scene, that probably, like Crowbar's probably doing better than it ever did and so forth, right? But then I wanted to look a little deeper, and it's like, okay, well, there's got to be somebody that's obviously pushing this.
Yeah.
Somebody who's got money or something. So I looked into the management.
Okay.
And so they are managed by a company that's called 33 and West. All right. And this is the management company that started, I think, around 2018. There's like 3 guys who have worked in, and this management company now not only, has bands like Acid Bath, like Goat Whore, like there's a Crowbar. They're very invested, it looks like, in Louisiana. One of the guys must be, I think, from the area. He used to be a musician, I think, for like a doom or sludgy type of band. But they're also very invested with talent, and it's a talent agency that's also based out of Hollywood with film and so forth too. So it's not just music only. So that's where I believe they're getting their push from. Why Acid Bath though? Maybe one of the guys is just like, hey, I love this band. I'm going to spend this, some money pushing them. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, between that and maybe some of these other things we just mentioned could have increased the interest in the band and decided, let's get some money behind them. Dax can still sing. I don't know, man. It's just, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. It's bizarre.
It's we see bands. We always see bands that we're surprised are back and maybe a little bigger than they were the first time. But this is night and day. This is anywhere but Louisiana. This is a local band here in Cleveland. And I know this because at the time Acid Bath was touring, I shared an office with what was the main booker for those kind of bands, which was a place called Spotlight Talent. And the guy that ran it was a guy named Mitch Karszewski. And Mitch and I shared an office. So every time the bands came into town every single day, they had to walk through my office to get to Mitch's office. So, me as a metal guy, and that was when I was doing my magazine too. A lot of time, it was convenient because a lot of times I'd be like, well, sit right down and here's a microphone and let's do 15 minutes while Mitch is finishing up. And that was how, that was my secret to getting some better interviews, really. But Acid Bath, I remember coming through and I went to those shows and there was no one there. In fact, we had stacks of the CD with the John Wayne Gacy cover on it. We had stacks of these things that we would take to the shows that night and just pass out. We would just pass them away because we had no use for them. What are you going to do with 40 Acid Bath CDs? So we gave them away. They were not big, but Jesus, now they're going to be playing in front of 60,000 people or whatever.
Stadium tour.
They probably did whole tours where they didn't play in front of 6,000 people.
No, even at home, I'm sure they sell this. I'm sure, in New Orleans, they could sell out a 2,000, thing, maybe in a big concert venue there, because like you said, they have a huge following there, and then just in the South in general, I get that, but I think it was, I guess everybody I've talked to who said they've either seen or heard of them was like, I saw them, opening them for whatever at some small thing, and it wasn't like, have you ever seen anyone walking around with an Acid Bath shirt on? Or, no. Again, it was, I only heard of them, I remember, because my buddy was a huge DRI fan, and they were on Rotten Records, which was half, I think, co-owned by Spike Cassidy from DRI.
Right.
And that's how he kind of learned of them through Rotten Records, which is obviously DRI's label. Well, like I said, half owned, but that was it. And then, like I said, I liked it. To me, it was just back then. I liked the album. I wouldn't say I loved it because I liked, like I said, his cleaner vocals, Dax, but the more sludgy black metal-y type of vocals weren't my thing back then. I didn't really adjust to it, until later on. But like I said, a solid band. I even went back. I was like, like a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I gotta am I missing that there was some greatness? I wouldn't, like I said, really solid band. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't say great. The recording wasn't like this high, production.
No, it was
either.
Typical NOLA fuzzed
underground
out
stuff. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Yeah, it's the never-ending, baffling, bewildering thing about how this is. Again, okay, I can understand doing some reunion shows. Like I said, maybe there's this renewed thing, and they want to see how they're doing. But and even now, are they doing that much better? Where it's like, yeah, they're taking off now, or is this just someone who's just so invested behind the scenes in the management or something in the band that they just maybe loved them and said, I want to push this band. I'm going to spend my own money and get them out there. I don't know.
Well,
I've never seen anything like it. That's what I'm going to say. Never.
and here's the telltale that it's not connecting other than in the live setting. I mean, you listen to this kind of music all the time. So do I. I don't know if you use Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple or whatever you use. Does it ever feed you an acid bath song?
Never.
Same here. And I mean, I listen to acid bath every now and again. That's the only time I'll hear it on like Spotify or YouTube Music. It's if I'm listening to, an album from 1,000 Mods or something that would make sense. You would think, I'll get the I Hate God stuff will come up. I'll get the Kingdom of Sorrow or Crowbar or, those types of bands. I don't ever get fed acid bath ever.
No.
And which makes me think they're not connecting in the digital platform at all.
No.
Only in the live setting.
I agree because, like I said, this is a band that's never had a music video. I mean, you're linking them up here with Queens of the Stone Age and System of a Down, who are MTV, radio. I mean, everything. Again, there's just exactly. It's not like all of a sudden they're popping up and it's just like, okay, and we've seen that over the years, right? We've seen when bands either had reunions and they've had sort of this rebirth where they become bigger than they were ever. We've seen them, gaining traction. You said showing up on playlists or people doing maybe covers of their songs, like bigger name, bands doing covers and so forth, or they're out there pumping them. Like, we said Corey Taylor. I mean, one band I know that Corey Taylor did cover and was a big, he was very vocal about love and was the band Life, Sex, and Death. We did an interview a couple years ago with them. Okay, and they had like a known, they were great live. Like, there's a lot of buzz around a band like that was obscure. It only had one album. That I could see maybe gaining, traction because of the cult following, and they were just ended earlier than they should have. But the acid bath thing, again, this was such an obscure sludge underground band, and just to see them again, I can understand if they're maybe going to open for like an Exodus or like a classic thrash band or super, but for Queens of the Stone Age and System of a Down. I mean, it just makes no sense. I just, I don't want to keep beating it to the bush here, beating the bush on it here, but it's like, I don't know, man. I'm really interested to see what's next after this now. Are they going to put out new music? Is it going to be all of a sudden embraced, by all these fans? Is it really a resurgence, or is this just some sort of like thing that we're always going to like look back and go, that was fun. That was weird.
I would love to chat with Sammy today and find out what this does to Goat Whore, because Goat Whore is a much bigger band than Acid Bath, or at least has been. Maybe not in the live performance, but certainly in the recording and certainly in that black metal scene. They are much bigger than Acid Bath is in the doom scene. And I mean, is that band now over? I
would say it's on the back burner. I mean, you've got to ride this wave, and I'm sure they're going to put out new music. This is, I think, a build up to them. I'm sure they're already writing. I mean, there was something where they
might already be done and release it before these European tour. Possibly. That would be the smart way to do it.
Well, at least put out a single or two. You know what I mean? For sure. I mean, just to be like, I mean, instead of just riding on two, old albums that weren't the best production, and obviously they've advanced as musicians, all of them.
Sure.
So it's just always going to be the acid bath thing, in my opinion. Like I said, I've never ever seen anything like this, and you've been in this business for 30 plus years. I mean, we've never seen anything like
nothing like it. More power to them. I can't be happier for them. I wish it would happen to some of the other bands that never, like an I Hate God as an example. I think I Hate God's one of the best 10 best of that kind of music ever to make it. I love that band to death. Mike Williams is amazing. they can't give away tickets when they go anywhere but New Orleans.
Well, I think the difference between a band like that is, they don't have, and that's one of the things is it's the vocals, right? Dax Riggs is a really awesome vocalist. I mean, he does have a huge range. Where Mike Williams is just your classic, just sludge, just screaming, and so that's not as accessible. Where I think you could, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe Acid Bath is a more accessible. The thing is, when you listen back to those albums, they weren't really even a sludge or doom band. They had like alternative metal. They were just a hodgepodge of different. They were just a '90s, metal band, really,
right?
With a bunch of different influences. They had some punk hardcore in their sound. Very different. And it's really, I think, Dax is what makes them stand out is his vocals. He really is an excellent. That was the first thing I remember hearing him back in the day. Was like, all right, well, this music's a little different, but I was like, they definitely got a really awesome vocalist. This guy's got a very unique voice, and so I think it's more accessible that way. And he has, a solo. He has a history of, he's got a pretty decent, cult following with the solo stuff, where it's a little bit more, like that. It's a little more avant-garde, and it's not sludge black metal type of stuff. So that's what I think sets apart Acid Bath and all the sludge bands like Crowbar and I Hate God and all those bands. But yeah, no, I'm with you, man. Hey, like I said, more power to them and good luck to them. It's just I'm always gonna, I want to get to the bottom of this eventually and like, well, how did this become the way it is? Because like I said, we've just never seen it.
Dude, this might be the truest it just happened moment ever.
I hope so. That would be, listen, that would be great.
I would love
if you think about it, right? That would make me feel really good about like, all right, people really are still in the metal. If they're going, I mean, that's a good point too. All right. Think about over the years, people have gone back to usually the 70s and 80s looking for stuff. Maybe this, this Gen Z, whatever generation, or even some of the millennials are like, well, that stuff's a little too old for us, but let's go back to the 90s because we do like a lot of the slower, sludgier, doomier stuff. And it's like, whoa, this band is pretty awesome. And maybe there is that much interest. I would love to see how those, I don't know, I should probably look into it, but how those reunion shows did outside of New Orleans. I know they had some in LA, they had an LA show or two. They had one up here as well, in Oakland. I'd like to see how those things sold to see if they're really, I mean, there must be an interest or else they wouldn't be put, I think, on the tour.
If they did 30 people a night on those shows, there's no way are they going to be the opener on a stadium show.
And they've never, ever toured Europe before. This is their first time. So that could be too. Is that interest? Amazing. It's just amazing. It's an interesting story. And like you said, I'm with you. Definitely more power to them. And I wish them well.
Yeah.
It's just, I need to find out how this is happening. That's all, man.